for our Kickstarter conversation today. And wow, we did read that paper yesterday, and the budget process is almost complete, and presentation of the national budget estimates for the next financial year is just around the corner. Interesting budget proposals and new tax measures have been approved, but Parliament ready to be implemented by the taxman. But how will all these figures affect your pocket, your business, organization, or even lifestyle?
Right, so the Daily Monitor yesterday presented these tax measures in detail. So this morning we are joined by Miss Jane Naluga. She is the country director of Siatini, whose area of speciality is tax, trade and investment. So to break that down, she's right here to help us understand all these tax measures. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, my dear.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me here. And good morning, our viewers.
Good morning.
The first thing you did when you sat there is you had a glimpse of this, which was yesterday's paper, and said, I read that. So you read yesterday's paper.
I did.
You read the details of what we're seeing here of the new tax measures.
Yep.
Proposed. Yesterday we saw a lot of maintained. For an ordinary Ugandan who's probably just going to see this paper, seeing 950 litres maintained, 600, what do they need to understand on plain eye on what was in the Daily Monitor yesterday?
Okay, maybe we should start by saying that tax measures, they are supposed to be a development tool, a tool to get us from point A to point B, and to be able to achieve our aspirations as Uganda. You know, for example, like now we are talking about industrialization, job creation, and all that. So when you are looking at these measures, that's the first thing to say. We have
they should be supporting that.
Exactly. We have so many challenges, unemployment. You know,
right?
Does it address unemployment or not? You know, so you don't look at you look at each one in isolation, but you have to have a bigger picture. Where is it taking us?
Speaking of the
A to point B.
Right. Speaking of the bigger picture, now government actually proposed this particular amendments, and their end goal is that within the minimum projection of this particular tax, measures or amends, so to speak, they look at 862 billion returns for the financial year 2019-2020, and they say that the total revenue projection will stand at 17 trillion from all tax sources. Now, would you call this quite an ambitious tax plan coming from government? Will we truly achieve this?
No, it isn't very ambitious, because when you look at our tax to GDP ratio within the region, it's the lowest. So government has a leeway, it has a space to be able to increase the taxes. But when you talk about 15 trillion,
17 trillion.
17 trillion. Who is paying and who is not paying? Because, for example, when I look at that 500 billion waived off from corporations, and I'm asking myself, who is going to be able to fill up that gap? So we go back to VAT, to consumption taxes, which affect the people. And if we don't fill up the gap, then we go into borrowing again, which is also bad for the economy. So it isn't a matter of saying that government is going to collect trillion from the people, but we need a breakdown. How much is coming from the corporations? How much is coming from VAT? So that we can be able to, at least to assess who is carrying the burden. Because at the end of the day, any tax should be equitable. Any tax measure. In fact, when you look at taxes, there is what we call the 4 R's, because sometimes we concentrate so much on tax to get revenue, but there are other issues which we need to consider. Issues like redistribution. Taxes about redistributing resources to reduce inequality. You look at Uganda today. The rate of inequality is so high. The rich are really, really rich. And the poor are really, really poor. And that causes instability in a country. So taxes can be used, and they are used
to bridge
that gap. So you tax the rich, provide social services, provide hospitals, provide education, so that the poor are also pulled up, and that's another use of taxes, a tax measure. Then also there is that issue of depricing. Taxes are used to reduce the bad habits. Like tobacco, and I see they have done that, but they maintained it. And for us as civil society, we are saying tobacco is not good for our health. You can't ban it, but you can increase taxes on it. So government would be getting revenue, but also reducing on people who are smoking.
The sin goods.
Those are the sin goods,
right?
Really, So you look at it also that way. Do these tax measures talk about repricing? But are they reducing the bad and increasing the good or not?
Do you think that would be the focus really on this one? Because one would say that how much can we get from maybe taxing the sin goods at a higher price? How much will you recoup that and put in our resource basket pretty much?
And this is what I'm saying, that not all tax measures are about revenue. Some tax measures are about
controlling habits.
Okay. Like we talked about last time I was here, we talked about the betting. For me personally, that's a very bad habit, and it should be taxed out of existence. So those are the sin goods which should be taxed. Government can get revenue out of it, but it isn't the primary objective of getting revenue.
The discussion of the rich being taxed more to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. It's a discussion that happened in England at some point, and the question has always been, are the rich responsible for the poor not being rich? Well, they are not. When you look at the new tax measures that have been proposed, and when you look at our challenges as a country, you said these measures should be able to help bridge that gap. When you look at the proposals at large, do you see it addressing unemployment? Do you see it, because at some point here we see that there has been a deliberate effort to invite investors into the country. And even here you'll see that produced goods from $50 million will enjoy an automatic exemption from VAT for at least 10 years. And this, according to the finance minister, is to attract more investors in the country. Does this bridge any gap? Or address any challenge that we're having as a country?
So when you look at these tax measures, like you are saying, they have really tried to attract investments. Even the wave of the 500 billion of taxes, that's also in a way propping up the companies, the corporations, and also the tax waivers and all that. But we need to reassess and say, is this the best way to create employment? Because what kind of employment really are these companies creating? Because if we don't even have a minimum wage,
right?
How do you expect them to create employment? I see a number of companies here, I won't talk about them. You see women, they are earning peanuts. They have nothing, and they are below that pay as you earn threshold.
Let me tell you, this battle of having a minimum wage, when will we ever conquer this? Because yesterday the president was launching, quite a number of factories, and we did even see that story in the Daily Monitor this morning. And I remember there's this particular statement that he made that went quite viral. His advice to the investors, of course the manufacturers and them that run these factories, he was telling them, do not increase the salaries or the payment that you give to your employees, because that then will affect your bottom line and you end up running losses, and that will have an effect on our economy. Is that the right approach?
No, for me, with due respect, I don't think that's the right approach, like that saying goes, peanuts are given to monkeys, not people. You don't pay people peanuts, And for me, I also think we shouldn't take investors like they are doing us a favor, Investors come here when they know the bottom line. It's business, They do their calculation and say, I'm going to Uganda, I will earn so much. So sometimes when we give incentives, they are redundant. They don't need them.
Correct.
What they need is a good infrastructure, the electricity is there, the roads are okay, people have skills, and then they do their business. But the moment you put people perpetually into poverty, then what are investments for? Investments are not an end in themselves, that will have attracted that one and that one and that one. Then you give land, you give all these incentives. So what are we getting as Ugandans out of that?
Then is it that the Ministry of Finance doesn't know what you're saying? Is it that they don't know that? Because it seems like their only approach to attracting more investment, FDIs, is by tax waivering and giving them tax holidays. Is it that they don't know this?
I think they know. I think we need to separate the technical and the politics. Because sometimes we make decisions from the political angle. Not from technically what's, you balance the books and say, I don't think we are getting anything out of it. And there has been a hype, that, investors are like, and foreign investors are, those are to deliver us from our poverty.
Correct.
And I think we just need a rethink. You find countries like India. India, they say, no, it's the Indians to invest here. Whatever happens, if you invest in Ugandans, they will be here. They have nowhere to go because they can't go and invest in London or wherever. They will be here.
Correct.
When you talk about Ugandans investing in their own country, when you look at the tax measures that have been proposed, is there an opportunity for us as Ugandans? This has been an outcry by very many economists in this country, that they give chance to Ugandans to invest in their own country. That seems not to be an idea that the president has bought into. He seems to look so much at foreign investors. That's why they're getting the land, that's why they're getting these tax waivers. Is there space for us in these proposed measures for Ugandans to invest in their own country?
Actually, maybe just to bring now the statistics to what David is saying. Now, the government actually proposed that to reduce the minimum investment capital for operators, these are foreign operators, from 15 million down to 10 million. Now, for locals, from 5 million to 2 million. Yes. But Parliament went further and said that we have to reduce this threshold for locals to 1 million USD. That's about 3.7 billion. But is that a good deal? Is that low enough for the common person?
Yeah, at least when you look at that, at least it shows that government is thinking about, Ugandan investors. And I agree with you that the position is really $2 million. That's also a lot. We need to encourage more developers, Ugandan developers, to go into the industrial parks. But again, like I was saying, this tax measure should be looked at also holistically as an economy. What are we going to produce? Is there a market locally? Because sometimes you can produce and you can't compete with cheaper goods coming from outside.
Yes.
So we need also to look at that holistically. That if we are going to help our local investors, for example, invest in clothes, textiles, what are you doing about
to help them with the quality
but also the market,
Yes.
Because if you can't conquer your own market, domestic market, you can't say we export to London and all those
just places. Right there when you're talking about our local content and the consumption, because we as Ugandans need to consume our own content before we go for others.
Exactly.
Has there been a deliberate effort for that to happen in this country, because if we keep our gates open to all this that is coming in from Asia, that is and the quality, it might not be better than what we have here, but because it's coming in cheaper, there's no space for local content to be consumed.
That's true, and it goes back again to the policies. We have been talking about it.
Correct.
Here, you know, we liberalized in 1982, 80s, you know. World Bank told us that, okay, you have to have new policies, you have to liberalize, open up your economy, you have to privatize. We went into the privatization drive. You have to deregulate. Government should get out of development. And these were conditionalities because of the debt, and I think we need to talk about it here. You know, we had accumulated a lot of debt, and they told us, in order to pay your debt, this is what you would do. So it was, those were conditionalities. Other countries didn't do what we did, or they did a little bit. And in fact, all economists say that those policies of the structural adjustment have had a lot to do. But you know, when you look at where our economy is, so for me, I think we need to rethink our economic policies. You know, are they working right? Should we be opening up? Should we be privatizing? What should be the role of government? You know, because we give government money, we don't pay taxes to the private sector.
Correct.
We pay to government. What should be the role of government to stimulate the economy? Because we can't talk about tax measures without a vibrant economy, you know. Because, for example, today we are talking about the same measures. We are just deepening, not broadening, because there is nowhere to broaden. The economy
is tight.
Right.
Let's take. We've had this conversation about the rich and the poor, and there was a proposal under income tax to put a tax, or what many have called property tax, rental income.
Correct.
It was rejected by the MPs. This is one of the things that you would look at. For one would say, if anyone is able to own a property in this country, they would be considered among the rich. This could be a proposal to bridge that gap that you're talking about. It was rejected.
No, I think what was rejected was the segregation. Is it per unit or something like that? Because we already have a condominium law. When you have, for example, a flat, it's considered as one unit instead of different units.
Correct.
So there were some of those technicalities.
MPs argue that would be multiple taxation.
How?
Because you have all this tax on building materials, you have all and then there's income tax. When are they going to recuperate their investment?
Not really, because what should be done is, if you have a rental really and you are getting income, because tax is on your income.
Okay.
You know, you show your expenditure, then you pay on your income. For me, I don't think there is a problem.
You know, with regards to these particular tax measures, now we are looking at a positive. Now we have farmers who will no longer, have the reason to cry. Pretty much they're smiling because now that 1% tax on their harvest has been removed in the new tax amendments and measures. So do you think this will ultimately improve the bottom line of the common farmer down there, for example, in Chisoro, the sugar farmer? We've been having the issue, to do with the sugar conversation of late.
And let's not forget
What's your view on that? This is a positive.
Big push when it comes to farming in this country. He's told them, come on, guys, this is one thing that we have done. We have known how to do from ages. This is what we need to do.
Yeah, but the president is talking about farming and all that, and even that 1%.
It's been removed. It's a lot.
But
it's been removed. It's been removed on the harvest.
It has been there. What has been the effect when it's removed? Because you see, we need to reorganize the whole agricultural value chain. Recently, was it last year or this year, that price of maize has been fluctuating.
Correct.
From 700, 800 to 100 to 500. And if you talk about the 1%, on what? On the 500, on the 100, on the 700, on what? You know, and we have been talking about a minimum price for farmers' produce. Keep produce like maize. Let there be a minimum price. Everything has a minimum price.
But Ms. Jane, someone would argue that we are living in a free economy, and the how will I put it, the middlemen are the people who actually bring some vibe in the agricultural sector, in the value chain. So what's your take on this? I think pretty much it's okay, willing buyer, willing seller.
But you see, that's why I'm talking about a minimum. Minimum. To say, because what we see today is the fluctuation, like I said, from 100 shillings, 500 shillings a kilo of maize to 700, that fluctuation. It's possible to be able to say at a minimum, a farmer buys so much, you know, and they cost that, and say a minimum for this year, maize will be 500. It can go up to 700, but let farmers know, because when these middlemen, and they are men, when these middlemen go to the farmers, they are really
they squeeze them.
Squeeze them, and they find the farmers very desperate. A wife is sick, a child is sick, and so on. Then they tell them stories.
And with these fluctuating seasons where the season is unpredictable these days, there's a need for an effort so that even at the worst, the farmer is not squeezed out of business.
Exactly.
So what you're saying is that the only way the farmers can realize the benefit of this 1% tax on harvest waiver is by government regulating the market price.
Government has to regulate. Government has to come in. And government, there is also an issue that agriculture is the backbone, but government is not getting a lot of taxes from agriculture, which is true, because the whole sector is disorganized. Somebody produces, somebody buys, and all that. Government has to reorganize agriculture. It was organized way back because we had cooperatives, and that's where government can be able to tax. You can't reap where you haven't sown. Government has to sow in agriculture, put there certain structures, maybe silos, maybe what, but then they can be able to get taxes from it, and that 1% can make sense.
Let me. I usually when we talk about things like this, the first thing Mala will be my witness here. The first thing I said yesterday when I saw this was I thought about my judge. My judge has her concerns and the things that affect her: fuel, sugar, electricity,
OTT,
water, OTT.
Your judge is on social media.
Yes, she is on social media.
Your judge?
Yes. Urban judges.
Those urban judges.
Yes.
So my judge, she's not bothered about all the other things. When you look at these proposed measures, is there some, because as soon as this is announced, when it hits the village, the first thing they're going to think of, mafuta bagongeza now, you know, and when there's a single shilling added to fuel,
the ripple
effects
are very, very.
It spreads to everything: sugar, water, salt, and everything. Does my judge have anything to worry about with this new proposed?
They have. Your judge has. When you look at these measures, the sugar is okay. It has been maintained, isn't it?
Yes.
Sugar maintained, gasoline, fuel maintained, you know, which is okay. OTT the way it was, maintained. But when you look at it holistically, are we going to break even? Was it the
17 trillion from all tax sources?
Are we going to break even? If we don't break even, where is government going to get money? Borrowing. And when we borrow, how are we going to repay? Because when you look at our budget for last year, the second highest budget item next to infrastructure are debt repayments.
Correct.
Okay? And what does that mean? That means that they are going to reduce on hospitals, on the health, on education, all those social services. And your mama, when your jaja goes to health centers,
she's not going to get
there's no money, there's no drugs.
So what you're saying,
You know?
the only thing that will be more advanced is the service delivery sectors will be compromised.
Exactly. You know, so you look at also that how much are we going to get for the social services,
All right.
for education.
Wow.
As we come to a close, the current inflation rate stands at around 3-4%, and experts say that by 2020 that rate will skyrocket to 5%. What does that mean for the common person
For the common
in light of these tax measures?
For the common person, it's increasing of the cost of living. The cost of living is going to be high. You know, there are things which we don't look at. For me, I love Ugandans, you know. You go and look at soap. You can't afford it, you move away quietly. The taxman will say, now Tuchiwatule is 1,000. You see people just say, 1,000? They walk. Nobody says anything. I have been in Zimbabwe, in Harare. Our organization will have headquarters there. From 500, a taxi you say 1,000. Wow, that's war. You say, Wugali Nshima, increased, that's mid-meal,
Right.
their maize,
Right.
no? Because that's their food. Even if you increase it by
a shilling.
That's war. Why? Where? You know, Uganda, we don't.
Are Ugandans just acceptive of whatever change that comes in the country? We wait for our parliamentaries to fight for us when they choose to.
Because you see, for me, what I think is that we still have food, by the way. Even if we are talking about the cost of living going up.
Food is readily available.
You go to Nakawa early in the morning.
Yes.
You get a heap, because they are farmers, you know. It's a heap of bananas, a heap of potatoes. So our rural areas are still subsidizing us very heavily. You know, you go to the village, you come back with a sack of beans, free. You have taken just one bowl of soap.
So what you're saying is that the only thing that is, you know, keeping us going is because we can afford food, the price of food.
Yes.
And also Mother Nature has blessed us.
Blessed us.
All right.
But not for a long time.
Okay.
We are killing our environment, and we're also killing the livelihoods of the small-scale producers. And the more people become younger, I doubt whether you can go to the village and start producing maize for price.
Well, most of us are leaving the villages and selling the plots of land.
Exactly, to come border. Exactly. So these tax measures, and also the budget, because they have to work together, the tax measures and the budget, because it's a cycle. How you mobilize your resources, how you utilize them, you allocate them,
Right.
and you utilize will come back to the tax measures.
In just a minute, because this is a discussion that very many Ugandans have. These taxes are collected every single day, and Ugandans are asking, where do they go to?
Exactly. That's, I talked about the 4 R's. Revenue, redistribution, repricing, then representation. Because when I give my money,
I want to see it.
I want to see what it's doing, and it's also a social contract between me and government.
Okay.
That I have given you my money.
Right.
I expect social services. I expect accountability, that this is how I have used your money.
Right.
I expect to ask my member of parliament who is representing me what happened to this money.
Okay.
And I expect them to tell us, why are you giving the 500 billion to this and that company? Even to pay for them pay as you earn, you know, Why not this company and that company?
All right.
So that's representation.
Wow, thank you so
very
much for coming in studios, Miss Jane Naluga, the country director of Siatini. Of course,
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We're still going to have the conversation on how we can stop the financial bleeding. In the country. Tax holidays,
Exactly.
havens for taxes for them that are rich and mighty, all these other things.
We'll have to talk about
We're going to have that
because
conversation.
if you are mobilizing revenue, yet you have a hole,
Corruption
in the bottom of a bucket,
it's all going out.
then what are you doing?
Wow.
Well, thank you very much, Jen Nalunga, Country Director, Siatini, joining us this morning as we're preparing Ugandans for the new tax measures. That has been our Kickstarter conversation. Thank you very much. It's an honor and pleasure to have you here.
And
we
do the use. We want the use. You people, you have advancing tax justice agenda in Uganda to be involved.
All right.
Have your say.
Have your say.
Well, have your say. Get down to our social media platforms, across all social media platforms, and let us know what your input is with these new proposed tax measures. Morning at NTV continues right after this.
Thank you.
Giant Uganda Company Limited is the #1 manufacturer of aluminium profiles in Uganda for sliding doors and windows, office partitioning and curtain wall section. Located in Jinja and Kampala on plot 84 and 88 7th Street Industrial